are new, welcome to Tea and Tarot. It's where we go to the cards to find out what's happening up on planet Earth and in our lives and with the energies. It's always wacky, but hopefully enlightening and informative. I'm just going to put my coffee down here. All right, so let's jump in. Tomorrow's full moon in Sagittarius. So it's, and it's an eclipse. So it's a double header. So just to let you know before we go to the cards, tomorrow, very powerful full moon. It's great for letting things go. So typically in a full moon, I'd be like, put your crystals out, charge all this stuff up, have a bath, soak up in the energy. But tomorrow's energy is a bit different. It's clearing old stuff out. So have that bonfire, burn that list of things you don't need anymore, clean out closets, get rid of the stuff from the past, because it's really time to let it go. And with eclipses, usually when you let things go, they're gone for good. So anything that's been hanging on in your life that you need to release, do it tomorrow. Prepare for it today and do it tomorrow during the full moon eclipse. Also, Mercury's going into retrograde, I think on the weekend, so that should be interesting. I don't always feel a Mercury retrograde, but I have a feeling this one's going to be a doozy because I'm already feeling kind of the energy of it. And for those who don't know about Mercury retrograde, it can affect communication and also details of things. So fine print, signing documents, contracts, things arriving in the mail, conversations with people, emails with people, texts with people. Don't assume anything, always follow up, make sure they got the communication, because things can sometimes go a bit missing. All right, so we have a request for the fairy deck. So we'll jump in and start with that deck. It's a really beautiful one. So I hope you guys are enjoying spring and getting outside a lot. I don't know what to say about the energy. It's been good, but it's always been wacky this past year. Let's face it, strange things. But I think everyone's feeling a little bit lighter and a little more hopeful, like we're moving forward finally and coming out of the tunnel into the light. So let's hope. Okay. So the Divination card is the one that came up, and this is asking us to really connect to our inner knowing. So I know you're here, curious about what I'm saying about the cards, but a lot of you are very intuitive and already know how to connect to your inner knowing, and some of you, this might be new to you. And really, it's a boring process. You just need to sit and be quiet so that you can hear your inner knowing, because it's not like a loud booming voice. It's like a quiet little voice. And so you need to get quiet, just breathe, and in that silence, the knowingness can come forward. And one of my favorite ways to do this is if you've got something going on and you can't make up your mind about something, it's rolling around in your head all day. When you go to bed at night, just set the intention, just ask your guides and angels and say, listen, I have this question, I have this thing I'm trying to figure out, I don't know what to do, I need clarity. Let me wake up with the answer, or let me wake up with the knowing. Because right before we go to bed at night and right when we wake up in the morning, it's this magical time where we're sort of drifting out of our personality and coming into a higher frequency when we go into our dream time. So as we drift into it and drift out of it, those are perfect windows to connect to your intuition, especially if you have a busy, active mind and you struggle with meditation and other ways. That's a trick to use. Ask the question before you go to bed with the intention you'll have some clarity in the morning. The other way to work around it is to do something athletic. Go for a hike, go for a brisk walk, go for a run, do some kickboxing, whatever it is, get your heart rate up, and then sit in silence after that, because then your busy mind will be less in it and you'll be able to get more clarity. So this card is asking us to connect to our own way of divining information and energy and finding those messages. So try some of those tips, see if it helps for those who struggle. Some of you might have a meditation practice already in place, and that's the best way to kind of tune in, let your mind just empty all of the junk that you don't need, and then after that's complete, you'll find you have that, you'll be in the zone. You'll have that moment of silence, or that, I just call it in the zone. And it can happen when you're working out too. You just get into this space where you're not thinking anymore. You just are. And that's where you want to be for the information to come through clearly. Sound good? All right, so these cards were sort of falling into the side of my body here. So we're gonna go with the Moonology deck, which is a new deck to me. So the cards are a little stuck together here, but, and even though, and we were talking about the moon, and these cards are all different phases of the moon, so, and different horoscope signs and moon cycles, and you could look at this deck and say, oh, this is the moon that's coming, what's the message? But I like to just pull the random cards because I feel like even if it's a different phase of the moon that comes up in the card than what's happening in the planets, in the universe, it doesn't matter. So this card is all about stepping out of our comfort zone. Okay, so what's been working for you or what you're comfortable with, it's nice to have comfort, especially after this past year. I mean, we've all kind of gravitated to it, I think, because comfort makes us feel safe, and routine makes us feel safe. And these things are all good, but every once in a while we do need to shake things up in our lives. You know, rearrange the furniture. Like spring cleaning is a great way to do it. Like the other day I just emptied everything out of my living room. I was washing the walls, I was washing the floors, I changed the carpet. I just needed to like rearrange that one room. I didn't have the time or energy to do my whole entire home. But that room feels so much fresher and better because things were rearranged and moved around. And that happens in our lives as well. We can get kind of comfortable, we can get into a routine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is you stop having change, you stop having new growth. So it is good to shake things up a bit. And actually, the moon that's coming, the Sagittarius moon, is, I laugh. Because Sagittarius, if any of you are Sagittarius, you are awesome, but you guys really make things shift. Like, if you have a Sagittarius friend, they're the ones that tell you the truth, and they don't stop to think if you're gonna cry about it or not. They're just blah, out with it. They very rarely lie. Like, they're just, it's out there, it's in your face. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but it allows you to deal with it. And we're coming into that Sagittarius energy with this full moon eclipse. So you might find like some of the things that come to the surface are things you don't want to look at, or you're like, oh God, I have to deal with this now. But see it as an opportunity to really clear this stuff out, because the patterns and things that are coming to the surface, whether it's emotional stuff, physical stuff, mind stuff, it's coming up to be cleared out for good. Okay, so whatever your experience is, you might have a beautiful experience with the full moon, you might be in a ball on the floor crying. Like, it could go either way. But just know that the Sagittarius energy is all about evolution and pushing you forward. Whether you want to go forward or not, you're going. And the universe will support that, so just know that. So now it's a great time to shake things up in your life, rearrange things, get rid of the things you don't need, freshen up your space, indoor space, outdoor space, and also internal spaces. Okay, so ride the wave of that energy, and Spirit is saying to us, it's time for that. It's time to shift that. All right, so let's see. I feel like I need to go to the Starseed Oracle next. Beautiful deck, love this deck. Also on Wednesdays, I do a 3-card spread on my Instagram, and then you just choose a card, and I try to switch the decks every single week so that you can kind of see inside some of these decks. Although the wonderful thing about the internet is now we can see inside of these decks. I remember when I first started using Oracle cards, I could never see inside the decks. You just had to kind of go to Chapters or Indigo, buy it in the store, and take your chances once you took the plastic off. So lots of wonderful ways to see inside decks nowadays without having to run the risk of not loving your deck. Okay. All right, so this card is all about jumping in. It's all about going for it. So many times in our lives, you know, when we're making choices especially, and I do this to death, like the people that know me are like, oh my God, Kerri, like what the heck? And it's because I'm intuitively reading multiple different timelines, and I like to pick the best one. So when I was younger, I don't know if you guys remember those Which Way books that you would read, or Choose Your Own Adventure books, and you'd make a choice and then it would lead you down another road, and you'd make a choice and down another road, and usually you'd end up dead in a ditch somewhere. But I used to read those books backwards because I wanted to make sure I'd end up with the best scenario. Yeah. So sometimes when I'm making big choices, I really fret about them. I have my intuition, but I really can get in my head and all about it. And sometimes that prevents me from taking action. And honestly, I feel like taking action for most of us is the best way to figure things out, because sometimes you don't know until you take that step in a direction or dip your toe in, or just, or even jump into it. You won't know if it's right for you or not. We're so afraid of making mistakes, but in fact, it's not mistakes. It's just we're learning discernment. We're learning what works for us. So sometimes you just need to jump in, and the universe is saying right now, the water's warm. It's okay to jump in. Like, you've got that spiritual support there. So whatever you go for in the next little while, there might be some fear, there might be some trepidation. That's normal when you're doing new things, but the excitement or that pull from your soul should be a little bit louder than the fear. It's normal to have that little bit of fear when you're doing new things. Now, if it's terrifying, paralyzing fear, you might want to baby step your way through it, or maybe it's your body saying, you're not safe here. But often our fear is not about actually physically being unsafe. It's more our mental, emotional feeling. And Spirit is encouraging us to bypass that to a degree and jump in and go for it. So whatever you've been avoiding or putting off because for whatever reason, or maybe you thought it's not possible and you can't do it, you're not ready yet, you don't have the resources, it's not going to come together, Spirit's saying just go for it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it's really not meant to be, it won't happen, okay? It won't. It just won't. And we all know that when we've tried to do different things in our lives. If we've tried to buy a house, sometimes it just doesn't line up and work out. And that can be heartbreaking, but it's not the right place for you. And then when you end up in the other place, you always look back and go, oh, now I know why I had to be here instead of there. So sometimes we don't trust in the flow of the universe, and we don't trust Spirit. They're always guiding us and taking us where we need to go, in the place that's best for us and everyone in our lives. We can have our own agenda and our own idea and be like, I was supposed to be there and I'm not. But it's having that trust. And it often is when we're in the future and looking back that we realize, the intelligence of that, not so much in the moment. But Spirit's saying jump in and trust, because they've got your back, so go for it. Now's the time to go for it. All right, especially if you've been sitting on it for a really long time and you just have not gone for it. Now's the time. I feel like we need to go to animal cards here today. This is Colette Baron Reed's Spirit Animal deck. It's a beautiful deck. One of my faves. Love the animals. Pay attention to the animals. There's a reason why there's certain animals around you in your indoor spaces and your outdoor spaces, and I've talked about this before. This refers to also infestations of things. Do you have ants? Do you have mice? Do you have a lot of gypsy moths? Look those animals up. See what the message is. Very often, things persist in our lives because they have a message to bring. As soon as we get the message, they'll miraculously disappear. It's very, very strange. But just try it before you call the animal pest control. Try energetically talking to the animals first. All right, so Flamingo Spirit came up, and the message on this card is embrace the in-between. And when I talked about making those changes and going for it, so to get from A to B, that's great. That's easy for me to say, oh, just go for it, just jump in. But it's that in-between. It's the in-between, which is the unknown, because we know where we are now. We know that, we're comfortable with that, but we might not know the future. We don't know what that feels like. And so as we transition from what we know to what we don't know, that can be terrifying, because we all fear the unknown to a degree. And it is like jumping in that water. It's like jumping in that water and not knowing if you're going to be able to swim. Will you float? Is it cold? Like what? It's like taking that leap. And so we're being asked to embrace the in-between, or embrace the discomfort, that little bit of that moment of, when you're going for something and you go for it, and then there's that moment before it happens where you're like, oh, I don't know if that was a good idea. It's the same feeling you have if you ever get on a roller coaster and you're not sure about roller coasters, and the roller coaster is slowly going up the hill, and you have that moment to think, should I be on this roller coaster? is it a good idea? And then before you know it, you're down the hill and you're too busy screaming your head off or laughing or peeing your pants that you can't remember anything. But that in between where you start to doubt yourself, or you second guess your choices, or you try to talk yourself out of things, Spirit's saying to embrace that. So don't let it stop you, but embrace the in between. Embrace the discomfort, and just know that it's coming up because you're going to a place you don't know anymore. If you want change in your life, you can't have change if you're not willing to take a step into the unknown. You have to. The people that make really big changes in their lives, the people that are around you that you see doing these big, huge, crazy things, they have learned over the years to get comfortable with embracing change and get comfortable with that in between. That's the only difference between them and you. And that takes time to kind of build up that fearlessness. Now there's recklessness, and we're not talking about that, but we're talking about like moving through our fears so that we can get from A to B. And Spirit is saying to embrace the process of it. Don't just look at the future and where you want to be and really hate the in-between. They're like, embrace the in-between. Be okay with it. Learn to be okay with it. Have that trust, have that faith. Okay. I haven't picked this deck in a while, and this deck wanted to come today. So some of you are looking for love, spring. It's the Romance Angel deck. I used to have mixed feelings about this deck, but it's actually pretty accurate. So we'll see for those of you who are looking for love. And maybe now you'll actually be able to date, because Lord knows it's been hard during COVID to have a social life. Okay, so let's see. We've got the Love Yourself First card. I know you're probably all tired of loving yourself first after this last year, but love yourself first, because you loving yourself oozes out of you, and that will attract people to you. Okay? And it is kind of true. There's something weird about if you're single and dating, and you're dating people, and then people are coming out of the woodwork, and then you have 5 people to date, whereas maybe you had a year where it was a complete drought. But it's almost like when you get your energy and your confidence up and you start feeling good about yourself, more people are attracted to you, and that's just what happens. So this is about doing whatever you need to do to feel good about yourself. So for some of you, it might be, maybe it's a more physical energy thing. Maybe you need to start working out again, or just get back on track with your health, or maybe you need to create space in your life and time in your life for another person. And maybe this is also like looking at, for those of you who are in relationships and have been struggling in your relationships and wanting that other person to love you in a certain way, maybe your needs haven't been met. This card is asking you to focus on yourself and focus on loving yourself and finding balance there. And then when you're in that place, you'll have a better handle on whether or not you want to continue the relationship or not. Because very often we look to our partners to fill the void of what we're not willing to give ourselves. And in a way, that's not really 100% fair. Because if we're not willing to give it to ourselves, we can't expect somebody else to give it to us, because even if they did give it to us, we have nowhere to put it. Like, we won't accept it, because if you're not willing to give it to yourself, you're not going to accept it from somebody else ultimately. So you're asking them to do impossible things. So Spirit is saying it's important to focus on loving yourself. And we all know our areas that we struggle with in relationships. And so it's asking us to look at those things and maybe go a little deeper with those things, and maybe use this full moon eclipse energy tomorrow, and the energy will be in it for the next week, to really let some of that old stuff go, so that you can start this spring, start fresh, get yourself in order, and then put yourself out there. And for the single people, maybe you've tried online dating, maybe you've tried meeting people a certain way in the past, and you're like, yeah, I'm never doing that again, it didn't work out. Well, you know what, that's the past. This is a brand new you, it's a brand new energy, it's a brand new day. Try it again from a different space. Ask your guides and angels to help you meet that right person. Use your team of spirit around you. You don't have to do that on your own. Actually, imagine how much more effective that would be if you asked your guides and angels to find you a future partner. They can weed through all the riffraff and just bring you some good people. So try that. Try something new. Don't do things the way you've always done them. You'll just keep getting where you've always been. This is really about changing your approach, changing your attitude, and going for things that you wouldn't normally go for. Okay, so that's sometimes thinking outside the box and trying different approaches. So don't like discount anything or push it to the side just because you don't understand it or you've never done it before. It's all about trying new things right now and seeing what works. Sound good? Okay. Where shall we go now? I'm being drawn to the Divine Guidance cards. Which are these? Fractal ones. So I'll show you. They're all fractal images with numbers, and then there's messages in the book, which I use sometimes, but today I'm not. I'm just gonna go with what comes up. Sometimes too, the universe will move you in a direction and you'll think it's not the direction. Like you'll be fighting to stay where you've always been and you're being pushed or pulled into another direction. And you can fight that. You can use your energy to fight that. But sometimes just to surrender and see where that like river takes you can be a really amazing thing to do. Okay, so this is the card that I pulled. And for me, this card is about like a mirroring or a duplication of something, like a repetition of something, but not in the same way. So we might be going back to something in our past that we tried before that didn't work, or it's a circling back to revisit maybe projects that weren't completed, maybe circling back to relationships for closure or clarity. But there's going to be a circling back to your past, but not to get stuck in your past, okay? Not to go back to the past and live it in the same way, but there's going to be a circling back to it for completion. So once you do that, you'll have those missing pieces. Maybe if it's unfinished projects, unfinished courses, unfinished things on your to-do list that you've just been putting off for years, maybe finally you let those things go. Maybe it's actual physical things in your house you've been hanging on to for 20 years because you're going to do something with it, and then you finally realize, okay, it hasn't happened yet, I'm letting it go. And it could even be relationships or circling back to the past to get clarity on maybe why a relationship ended, or maybe reconnecting with someone to rebuild something. But this is about circling back, but doing it differently. So it's not going to feel the same, it's not going to be the same, but there will be an element of I know this, I've been here before. And that's the energy for all of us that we're going to be moving into, but it really is about getting the information and energy from the past rather than reliving the past, okay? So if it's an old relationship that's rekindled, it's not going to be the same as it was in the past. It will be different. It will still be good, but it will be different. All right, let's go to the Spellcasting Oracle deck. Ooh. Has anyone else been gardening? I've been gardening. I feel like most days I've been covered in dirt, but I love gardening. It helps me stay grounded, and it's great to be outside. But even if you don't have a garden and you can't get outside, have something you can do that helps ground your energy or keep it here, because we've had a lot of energy shifts lately and they can make you feel a little bit chaotic or a little bit tossed around. Sometimes people find that their sleep gets a little wacky as well. But if you have activities or things that can help you ground, you'll feel more balanced through all the shifts. So this card is asking us to lighten our load. Okay, so it's like kind of like their version of Atlas holding the earth, holding the weight of the earth. And a lot of us might feel that way, having that responsibility for other people. And even just this past year, carrying the weight and the energy of everything that we've been through. It's been a lot. It's really affected us in all of our sort of security places, our finances, our relationships, our health. Like it's hit us in our 3 sensitive zones, and we've been carrying a lot. And some of you might not even realize that you've been stressed because you've just been continuing, you've just kept on going and doing, but your body and your emotions and even your spirit might be like really overloaded and exhausted. So it's important to tune into yourself, and if that's the case, to give yourself permission to rest and to recharge and to let some of that burden down. You don't have to carry all of it. You can put it down. And if you don't know where to put it, again, ask your spirit guides for help and your angels for help and say, listen, this is too much for me to handle. It's like literally in my head all the time and I'm worried. Please just take this burden from me and surrender it to spirit. So whether you send off a prayer or however you want to approach that, but just release it and let it go, because we're being asked to not carry that heaviness anymore. Okay, so for those of you who have a fire pit, I would encourage you to have a fire sometime in the next couple of days. Maybe make a list of all the things you want to release in your life and use that fire, have it be a sacred fire, set the intention, and just put everything in the fire to be burned as a symbol of what you're letting go of. Really powerful. You can do that with friends, you can do that with family, but it's very powerful whenever I've done it in the past, especially with others. There's been huge shifts within the group, so that's something you can do as well. All right, so I'm pulling now from the, I'm going to take my throat chakra's doing something weird. Hold on. Okay, I'm not used to talking this much because I live with my cat, well, my son, but he's like 21. He's been gaming lately, so not a lot of talking there. So this is the most I've talked in a long time, and my throat's like, whoa, what's happening? Okay, so this is the Keepers of the Light Oracle deck by Kyle Gray. And I've just pulled Larian, which is about divine healing. And green is very much the heart chakra, but healing can occur in any energy center. But a lot of us have been feeling things here in our heart, which is where we feel our love and compassion, but it can also be where anger and judgment can get stuck as well. And I just did a post on this earlier today, but there's been a lot of wonderful things that have happened in the last year, but there's also been, it feels to me like excessive judgment of people telling other people what to do and how to live their lives and everything. And I'm kind of like, guys, like, take care of yourself first. Just do you. If everybody just did themselves, then it would be fine. But instead of getting your knickers in a twist of what your neighbor is doing or what your family member is doing, like, do what you need to do and let them figure out what they need to do. So this is about healing the heart, healing those feelings of hurt, betrayal, judgment, sadness, grief. Some of you have not gone and moved through your grief. There's been a lot to grieve this last year. There've been a lot of beautiful things too, but I'm talking right now about the heaviness that some people are still carrying. Allow yourself to grieve the loss of the things you felt you lost this year, okay? Allow yourself to have time for that. Have some kind of a ceremony, just like you would if someone died, and find a way to let that go, because you don't want to be carrying that in your heart. That affects your vitality. It affects your ability to be in relationship. It affects your energy moving forward. So when we talk about taking care of yourself and your health, it's also about your spiritual health. It's also about your energy centers. The heart chakra, we need that open. We need that one clear, all right? Meditation is great. There's so many great meditations on opening up your heart, healing your heart. Even just sitting and putting your hands here, imagining light coming from your hands into your heart. I like to make a ball of light, so you can just sit, make a ball of light between your hands until you can really feel that energy. And when it feels strong, then you can actually just move it, place it into your heart, and just breathe that in. That's a quick, easy thing that you can do at any time to connect to your heart and to clear your heart. Getting outside, enjoying the sun, listening to the birds, like whatever fills you with joy, especially if you're creating something or doing something, but really whatever fills you with joy is really great for your heart chakra. And also connecting to other people and helping other people and loving other people, and even our fur babies, which have been getting extra cuddles this year, like that really fills and opens our heart too. So really focusing on that, because there has been a lot more depression and anxiety this year, because we're used to being in connection and communion with each other, and a lot of us have been isolated and we need hugs, and so we're hug deprived. So, finding ways to give yourself that love, it's really important, okay? Still is. and allowing yourself to grieve anything you feel that you've lost this past year, because there has been a lot of sadness. But once we're coming out the other side of that, and the end of a cycle is always the beginning of a new cycle. So the letting go and the grieving and the releasing and the letting that go, and then we're going into the new beginning cycle. So new beautiful things coming, but we'll have more beautiful things coming in if we can make space for them, right? So think of your heart as a container, and if it's full of pain and suffering and hurt and anger and judgment, there's not a lot of room in there for joy. So you want to like don't be a hoarder, like get rid of that stuff so that you create that space so that more love and joy and opportunity and lightness can come in, okay? And if you're struggling and you're really like stuck, that's where you need to ask for help from spirit, and that's maybe when you need to have a session with an energy worker or a massage therapist or someone that you love to help you shift that if you can't do it yourself. But definitely try meditations. There's so many great free meditations online. I even have some on my website that can guide you through and help to open up and clear this space, because it's so important right now. All right. I feel like I was lecturing you guys about the heart chakra. Sorry if I was like, Urgh. All right, let's go to the Goddess Power Oracle. Whew. It's hot in my house today. I've got the windows shut though, because I'm trying to keep the cool air on the inside. And I'm glad my cat's not being crazy, because he was so nuts right before I went live. I thought he's going to be, you'll see him flying across the room behind me. He's full of beans lately. Okay, let's go with this one. Devotion. Okay. This card, to me, this card, the energy of it is asking us to find our own rituals and the things that we really love and cherish that are important to us, and maybe reconnect with them. So there might have been something in your life that you used to love doing in the past that really helped you keep your energy high, and maybe for whatever reason it's gone by the wayside. And this card is asking us to reconnect to it in a way of being devoted to it and being committed to it. So as I'm talking, I'm thinking of myself. Like, I used to love to run all the time, and I haven't run in a very long time. In fact, I think if I went for a run now, I'd probably fall over and start wheezing like an asthmatic. But I feel like this card is saying that to me, start running again, because there's part of me that loves it. It's not a physical thing, it's like a mental, emotional thing. So maybe it's something, maybe you used to meditate, maybe you used to get outside more, maybe you used to do something creative, and for whatever reason you couldn't fit it in your life anymore because of scheduling, or you just sort of fell out of it. It's asking you to connect to those things that that you were devoted to, that really fill you up and fill up your heart and your soul. And it could be a spiritual practice. It might be, maybe you're connecting to your guides, or maybe you're doing hands-on healing. Maybe some of you have trained in Reiki or other hands-on healing methods, and you haven't done a self-treatment in a really long time. And this card's saying to you, like, reconnect with that stuff that used to fill you up and help you. Like, go back to it and cycle back to it and reconnect to it. And it's about being committed to it as well, like having a routine of it. So if you're going back to your meditation practice, it doesn't have to be every single day. Maybe you just start with once a week, but you're consistently doing it once a week. So start with like really tiny little micro goals. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And then as you get into a routine of that, then that will naturally expand into bigger things. It's kind of like working out. If you start working out and you haven't in a while, you're not going to go for like the 40-pound hand weights. You're going to start with a low weight and work your way up so you don't hurt yourself, because then you just hate it. And it's like that. It's asking us to take small steps forward, okay? And then you can build those up to bigger steps. So we're going to go to the Sacred Destiny Oracle cards. This is another deck that's new to me, but I really love it. All right. And the back of the cards are quite nice too. So, okay. All right, what do we have here? Freedom. Yes! Oh God, we need it, right? Oh, geez. Okay, so freedom. So just, and also too, like going for it. See all those birds there? It's like everyone's going for it. It's not like one bird is going for it and the other birds are like, what are you doing? No, this is the time to really go for some of your dreams that you've been putting on the back burner, or the things that you've been too afraid of in the past to try. This is the time to go for it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I will guarantee you, if you go for it, if you don't even end up exactly where you think you're going to be, you'll get where you need to be. Like it will, it's like that first step. It's like taking that first step, and then Spirit's going to help you navigate the rest. So, but you have to commit to that first step. Spirit can't just pick you up and shift you out of your comfort zone. Like we have to decide. But this is about going for the things that make you feel free, that bring more freedom into your life. And so for some of you guys, this might be financial. You might be like, you know what? This last year has really shown me where the holes are in my financial plan and my well-being and how I take care of myself. And I need to make changes with, with how I pay my bills, or just, my money going out, money coming in. And that might be freedom to you. Having freedom might be trying to be debt free. For some of you, it might be health. It might be like freedom to run up that hill if you want to, or eat whatever you want without having a reaction to it, or be able to do things with your physical body that you didn't think were possible. It's really whatever. Or in your relationships, maybe you want to feel free and happy and expansive in your relationships, and you don't want to feel like you're trapped in a relationship that's draining your energy or doesn't serve you anymore. So this is about finding the courage to really go for it, okay? Go for those things that bring you freedom. It doesn't mean that by doing that it's going to make anyone else less free, because everybody's doing it in this card. It's like you going for freedom is going to help propel everybody else in that direction too. And overall too, I hope this card is a theme of things that are coming, that we're going to have freedom across the board in our lives compared to what we've had this past year, where we haven't been able to do a whole heck of a lot. It's been a spiritual retreat. Not by choice, but it's still been all right. But it is nice to be able to just like travel and do those things that we used to take for granted. So, all right, so this is the card that I pulled from the Rumi Oracle, the Dissolving Light. And if you look closely, you see how that person is sort of sitting and they're all just in sadness. And then behind them, this light, it's almost like the Buddha, I don't know if you can see that very well, is behind them with this light. And that's what's happening. We're dissolving. All of our heaviness is dissolving into the light. And when it hits that light, it just becomes more light. When we're carrying things in our body, it feels so heavy. They feel so stuck. It feels so impossible. Like sometimes when I'm working with clients in session, they'll be like, oh, I forgot a block here. And when we say block, you think like concrete block, like it's not moving. It's been there forever. And we think, God, you're going to need a jackhammer to get this out. But in truth, we're holding it in place with our mind, with our thoughts, with that energy. And once you shift that, or once you just surrender and allow that to leave, that block just dissolves into pure light. It's amazing. It's amazing how quickly it can happen. So we're being asked to do that, okay? You're the one stopping it from happening. This up here, it doesn't take 50 million years to heal your body. It takes an instant. We affect our biology with our mind. Our body comes second to our thoughts, okay? So this affects all of this. So if anything is kooky going on here, we need to shift this first. Then this shifts, not the other way around. So it's asking us to accept that we can do that. We can release those heavy things. We can let them go. And if you don't know where to start with that, ask Spirit for help. Ask a healer friend for help, but just do it. As we're moving into this light, we're moving into more of our wholeness, who we are as spiritual beings. Yes, we're human, and yes, we have the heaviness of being in a body, but it doesn't mean we need to feel emotionally, mentally heavy all the time. It shouldn't always feel like a slogging struggle to be on the earth, okay? That's not how it's supposed to be. So if it is that way, then you need to get help to shift out of that so that you can live more with this lightness going on, all right? And sometimes that happens, that heaviness happens when we feel stuck in our lives. And we often feel stuck in our lives when we feel like we can't make choices or changes. And it might be because of other people. It might be because of our economic situation. It might feel impossible, but I'm telling you this, it's not impossible. There's always a way out. It's just you haven't found that way out because you're trying to do it the way you've always done it, which is why when you're in that space, like reading, you might read a great book or take a course or have a conversation with someone, and they get you thinking in a slightly different way, in a way that you've never thought before. And then all of a sudden that impossible thing seems possible to you because it shifts your consciousness. So that card is asking you to be open to that, to be open to different ways of thinking, different ways of being. And then as that happens, you'll feel less stuck because you'll see, wow, there is a way through this, and it's maybe not in the traditional way, but there's a way through it. So not to give up on things. It's okay to get frustrated and feel stuck, but journal them out, talk them out with a friend, or just ask Spirit for help. We're really surrounded right now with a lot of supportive energy, and we're being asked to let stuff go. So Spirit is definitely there to help us through this stuff right now, as well as this full moon eclipse energy. It's going to be like have a bit of a bang. So, make lists today of all the stuff you want to release. Have that bonfire and let it go. Now, if you don't have a bonfire and you're in an apartment or whatever, you could find an old pot, have a burning in a pot out on your balcony. Just don't burn your house down, okay? Do it mindfully, safely. So I'm going to the Work Your Light cards here. So this will probably be our last card of the day, and then I'll go to the angel cards. This is all about your soul family, and it's what I was just saying about not having to do things alone, calling on your friends, connecting with other like-minded people. Maybe you haven't found your soul family yet, and that's okay. Maybe you're new to spiritual things and you're like, oh, I wish there were more people in my life who thought like me or, inspired me in the same way. Well, you can find those people. And one of the great things about COVID is people are building communities online, like more than they ever have. And so you might not have your kindred spirits within a 5-minute walk of your house, but you can connect to them online or find them in some other ways. But this is about reaching out, connecting to your friends, connecting to your loved ones, especially the people that lift you up, that are your spiritual family and your spiritual supports in people on the earth. And it might be your fur babies, but like actual people. And spirits, they're helping you, but this is sort of like find your soul tribe, find your people, find your sisters, find your brothers on the planet. Love when I go to Peru because all the shamans, they're like my brothers and sisters. It's like your instant family just because you're a human being. So setting the intention to find other like-minded people out there, that's the first step, and then it will start to happen. Spirit will bring you your tribe as soon as you ask. So your soul family, your dearest friends, and for some of us, we're really lucky to have our soul family be our actual family. But all the people, places, things that you need in your life will come to you. You just need to ask. You need to surrender and you need to ask, because Spirit is always there with us, supporting us. It's just they're on standby. They can't jump in our life and rearrange it without permission. They can't interfere with our free will. So we do need to ask for help, surrender, have that trust and faith. Sound good? Okay, so we're going to the angel cards. I always pull these at the end. It's kind of a thing. It's funny because when my kids were little, we would do something once, and if they loved it, then they'd be like, well, we have to do it again. It's tradition. So I feel like I've done this more than once. Now it's a tradition, so I have to end the live stream this way. Okay, so I need a silver wing, gold wing. This is a really old deck called the A to Z of 100 Angels, and it came with a guidebook. So I've got like a silver wing card, a gold wing, and then this is the key. So this silver wing card, it's all about the guidance through power of prayer. So kind of what I was already talking about, like we need to ask Spirit for help. They want to get involved and help us, but we need to ask for help. And that's what prayer is. It's asking Spirit for help. And then once we do that, then Spirit can intervene. This is about time to relaunch your future. I love how the synchronicity of these cards at the end go along with everything we've talked about. Okay, relaunching your future, going for it, doing those new things, like going for it, relaunch your future. Might have elements of your past in it, but it's going to be brand new, a lot of it. The key is the first 14 days of a moon cycle can make things happen. Okay, so we're coming into the full moon, and then I think the first 14 days of a moon cycle, I'm not sure if that's counted from the new moon or the full moon, as I'm not an astrologer, but 14 days. So 2 weeks is all it takes. So at the very most, a month, depending on when we start counting the moon cycle. So go out there and make things happen. Thank you for coming this morning. It was really great to see all of you guys. The replay will be on Instagram, and I'll post it on the website as well once I upload it. But thank you for coming, and really enjoy the full moon eclipse energy in crazy Sagittarius tomorrow. And also hopefully Mercury retrograde is kind to you guys. But seriously, with the communication stuff, never assume anything. Always follow up with people. Don't get your knickers in a twist, okay? Everybody just be chill, be nice, love each other. Sound good? All right. Have a great rest of your day. It was so good to see you. Love you all, and I'll see you again soon.